Hello there, and welcome to episode 5 of my Gamedev Adventure series. This week, I decided to take a little bit of time away from my mosquito game, which I've been working on for the past month or so, just because I was starting to hit some areas where I wasn't really sure how to proceed and I was getting a little frustrated. I thought maybe I could channel my energy into something that was new and maybe a little bit more exciting to me, and then I can come back to mosquito game when I've kind of renewed my sense of purpose. So I know that I want to make FPS games, first-person shooter games, eventually, and I know that there's a lot of resources out there to that will help you with making them. So I figure, kind of over time, whenever I need a break from other projects, I can sort of slowly build up my knowledge on how to make shooters, and then when I finally feel like I've gathered enough knowledge to make that kind of game a reality, I can like get started on that in earnest with all of the knowledge that I've picked up along the way. So yeah, I'll just get straight into what I've been doing. I've been following along with a YouTube video series by a YouTuber named Mizzo Frizzo, and he has a series about making a true FPS. And when he says true FPS, he's talking about basically the camera is slotted inside of an actual character model, and it has actual animations, where with a lot of FPS games it's just a floating camera with arms next to it. So that's the difference between a more conventional FPS, just the camera with the arms, versus a true FPS where it's actually inside of the animation of an actual character model. So here, I'll just get right into it. So we've got a couple of weapon pickups here, and if I press the use key F, I pick it up and I start having the pistol animation, so it changes your animations depending on what weapon you have equipped. And then I can also do that with the rifle here, and yeah, that already was a pretty kind of complicated, more complicated than you would expect system, because you actually have to like spawn the weapon into the player's hands, and then when you're dropping it, you have to spawn a pickup that is a representation of the weapon. It's not the same thing. It's not like one object that's being transferred. It's like there's one weapon that's in your hand, and then there's another weapon pickup that has a different behavior attached to it. So that's like the basics of a weapon system. And one thing you can't really tell here just looking at it, but you'll be able to see in code. I can show you kind of the manifestation of it. If I'm using the pistol, it does a line trace to the crosshair, and it does it single shot. And then if I pick up the rifle, which is set to fully automatic by default, if I'm holding down the trigger, then it's actually doing that properly. Now, I don't have anything like a magazine system where there's a certain amount of rounds in my magazine and then the gun won't shoot at that point, but that was something that I'll be building in eventually. I know it's part of the YouTube series, and I will be able to do it. We've also got animations in here, so when I fire the gun, you'll see the slide comes back. I think I could actually speed it up a little bit and make the slide come back a little bit further, but I made the animation myself, so I'm still kind of learning how to do that. And yeah, so that's a couple of things that I'm excited about. This one, you can't really see the animation as much, but if you look at the bottom right of the screen, you can see the slide is kind of the bolt of the gun is going back as it's firing. And I'm pretty happy with how the animations came out. Obviously, there's no recoil or anything yet. Recoil is something that I'll implement later. And I want to do it in a procedural way so that you can make some guns have more recoil and make some guns have less recoil, and you don't have to like animate it specifically for each one. So that's something that I'll be bringing into play later on. I'll quickly go into the actual code here, because I think this is the part that is most interesting here. It's not a lot in terms of impressive functionality, but the code behind it is more robust than what I've done in the past. So when you're picking up a gun and then you fire it, it's actually going through and it's figuring out what type of weapon you have equipped. So it's storing the weapon that you've picked up as your current weapon, and then it's got an enumerator attached to it, which specifies whether that weapon is going to be fully automatic or semi-automatic. And then depending on what is specified within that weapon, it will do the appropriate action. So with a semi-automatic weapon, it's pretty simple. You just fire it, and then every time you do the fire input, it will fire it again. We would also, like if we wanted to add the ability to to not fire if your magazine is empty, then we would just add a check before this, like, does your gun still have bullets? And then with fully automatic, it's the same thing, except it's calling itself if it still can fire at the very end, and it's got a shot interval attached to it, which is the amount of time in between shots. So the lower this number, the more shots you would have in a second, basically. And yeah, so that's like a pretty robust system. And because I've actually got the because I've got this set up with a parent and child relationship, it means I can have as many weapons as I want. So I've got kind of this base weapon class, which has a bunch of data attached to it. If we go into it, don't know why it's taking so long. That's all right. Unreal's just having a moment. Okay, we're back. Sorry, I had a crash there on Unreal. It doesn't really happen that often, but I think when I'm recording, it might happen a bit more frequently because there's more CPU being used. But so I'm inside of my BP weapon class, which is basically my master weapon class, and you can see I've got a bunch of variables specified here, whether it's firing, damage, range, penetration, shot interval, the time between shots, how much ammo the gun currently has, what is the max ammo, what is the clip size, recoil pattern, weapon type, weapon name, fire mode, pickup class. These were all kind of just like things that we put in there. Most of these things are not like, I don't have anything that can receive damage at the moment, for example. I don't have any penetrable objects, but we've just got all this information in here so that it's all in one place centrally. And then if I create a child class from this, it's like here I'm in the weapon AK-47. And when I start building functionality, I've already specified what the damage value and the range value. This is 200 meters essentially. And so whenever this blueprint receives the message to fire from the player blueprint, it plays an animation. So that's the fire animation. It will calculate a line trace from the muzzle of the weapon towards a distance specified in front of the muzzle. So it calculates from the forward vector of the muzzle's rotation. And it does that for X distance. In this case, it's the 200 meter range that I've specified. And then it will apply damage, the base damage that I specified, to an actor. Like I said, there's no actors yet in the game that can receive damage, but once I build that in, because this has all already got damage values and stuff attached to it, it'll be super easy. And so it would be the same if I start building penetration into different objects, because all of the weapons have that, and I can specify it for each of the weapons individually. Every time I add a new weapon, it's got all the same data, and I don't need to copy it over to them. And if I wanted to go back, if I said, for example, penetration isn't something that matters to the game, then I could just take that out of the master blueprint and it would apply to all of the children very easily. So I'm learning a bit more about, like, with object-oriented programming, how to make classes and have parents and children and make sure that the relationships between those are all nice and neat, and to change functionality based on different things that you specify in the children. And so as I was doing this, in addition to being a little bit better about how I'm handling data inside of blueprints, I've also gotten better with animations. So I learned a bit how to use control rigs inside of Unreal Engine and make custom animations. So like this weapon, it didn't come with any animations by default. But I set up a control rig for it, which specifies a few parts on the skeletal mesh that I can move around. And with that control rig, I basically told it, I created an animation from it that said, okay, I want to move the trigger back, and then once the trigger is all the way back, I want you to play the muzzle flash animation and play a sound effect at the same time coming from the barrel of the weapon. And then it rocks the slide back. If I wanted to have a particle effect or something with a bullet casing ejecting out of the weapon, I would also be able to add this directly into the animation here. And yeah, so this means that every single time that this animation plays, all these things are happening in kind of like a coordinated and synchronized way, which is a lot cleaner than having to do it programmatically. Like the alternative, if I hadn't specified the muzzle flash and the rifle sound in here, I would have to go into the blueprint, and then when I'm doing all of this stuff, when I'm doing the line trace and applying damage, I'd also need to say, okay, now play this muzzle flash particle effect and play this sound. And so it just cleans it up a lot if I can have it inside of the animation. And then I also made the idle animation that you're seeing here, where the hands are just moving up and down. Very simple animation, not a lot going on, but that's kind of where I need to start. And then we've got a similar animation when you're holding a weapon, pretty subtle, like just a little bit of sort of breathing up and down. And then same deal with this weapon. And then when you start moving around, you can see the bounce gets more substantial and faster, sort of simulating the footsteps that you have. And same with the rifle; it's getting more intense as you're moving around. And you might also notice, so like with a lot of games that are first-person games, I was talking a bit before about the true first-person shooter, where it's actually a camera that's inside of a character model. So I can see my own feet, and I can see that I have a shadow in the world. And all of those things are kind of coordinated. So this is actually the shadow of my character model, instead of something that's simulated. And when I'm leaning back, it's a bit hard to tell here, but here, if I'm leaning back, let's start within the selected viewport, and I'll just get control of my cursor and eject. So here we can see I'm going straight, and then go back in the game, and then if I lean back, I'm actually programmatically changing the rotation of each of the spine bones of the character to kind of show the character as leaning back. And same if we lean forward. We've changed the rotation of the spine bones in order to reflect the new position. And yeah, that's a pretty nifty functionality. We can also do, like we're doing the same thing for leaning, so I can lean to the side, and that's changing the rotation of my spine bones again, leaning to the side, changing the rotation of my spine bones. And yeah, so we've got a bunch of different kind of very basic functionalities, but I think it's the bones of a pretty robust shooter system, especially the weapon system. And then with animations, I need to learn a lot more about them. I'll get better, and eventually I want to be able to make my own animations on command, basically. I'm not sure if I'll be doing them like I did here inside of Unreal, or if I should actually learn how to do them in Blender, which I think is a tool that is more commonly used for animations on 3D models. But yeah, I think this was a good way for me to start learning about control rigs and how to do things inside of the engine. And yeah, that's what I've been up to. This week I'm getting back into the Mosquito game, so look out later this week for more updates on Mosquito game. I'll be trying to make it more challenging and hopefully get it to a stage where we can have a playtest soon. That's definitely my ambition by the end of the month. So great, thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next time.